before going to the session, before I hand over to the speaker, just I would like to have a quick update on IIRSM India branch. A few updates like currently in India branch, we are growing with the members registrations, and right now we have 270 members, active members on board. And we have a LinkedIn IIRSM India branch page. So the participants, those who haven't followed the page, I will request you to do so. For the quick and insightful updates and events, you will be having just in short insights about the updates events in the LinkedIn page. And currently we have 436 followers in the LinkedIn page. And beside this, like if you are interested to contribute as a core committee team in the IIRSM India branch, you may go to the IIRSM India IIRSM events page on the website, and definitely you may say your interest over it, and you can say your applications for the various posts for the persons we are looking for the voluntary job and supporting the risk management, health, safety, environment across the globe and our nations. And IIRSM awards nominations has been closed, and 19th May would be the functions, the award ceremony. And one more great beautiful features, that mentoring platform. Already IIRSM has launched the mentoring platform, and all the active members have the options to participate as being peers to peers or mentor to mentee. So you can avail those benefits on the IIRSM websites. The link has been described below. So, and one more CPD event we have on the 10th March, linked, and the registration link has been already uploaded in the IIRSM website, and it's already been posted in the LinkedIn page. So people interested for the 10th March webinar, you may register over the provided link. So that's all about the IIRSM India branch update. I would hand over to our speaker, Mr. Adra, for further insights for this session. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Mohit, and thanks IIRSM for the invitation. Really excited to be here today. It's been a while since I've presented to IIRSM. I used to present to the branch in the UAE, and I'm really excited to be presenting for the first time to an audience in India. So, like I said, I'm really happy to be here. Many thanks for the invitation. And what I want to talk to you today is not about scaffolding or fire safety or anything technical like that. I want to talk to you about something that perhaps may inspire you. I think there's a lot of technical subjects out there, a lot of technical speakers. So I wanted maybe to branch off a bit and provide a bit of inspiration, so to speak. Before I jump into the meat of the issue, let me tell you a bit about what I plan to talk to you about today. So I'm going to start off with an introduction. I'm going to tell you about myself. And by no means this is not to be boastful or anything like that, but I feel like in order to speak about a subject like this, I need to at least gain a bit of credibility with the audience. Who is this guy talking to us, and what credentials does he have? What right does he have to speak to us about climbing the corporate ladder? So I'm going to start off with a little introduction about myself. I'm going to tell you about the inspiration for developing this presentation. I'll tell you why I decided to develop it, what was my inspiration behind that, and then I've divided the presentation up into 4 key lessons. 4 key lessons to climbing the corporate ladder. And these lessons, I'm going to be speaking about my personal journey. I'm going to tell you stories from my own personal life, and hopefully that will provide you with a bit of insight about how to grow in the corporate world. Now, honestly, if there's one thing I would have liked to present to my younger self, this presentation would be it. So I'm hoping there are some young attendees today who can, instead of reinventing the wheel, they can pick up some lessons from this presentation, so they don't have to go through all the struggles that many people have to go through. They could learn from this and perhaps cut a few years off in their journey towards the top of the corporate ladder. So let me tell you a bit about myself. Who am I? Who is this person talking to you today? So my name is Islam. I'm an HSE professional with more than 13 years of experience in high-risk industries, including construction, oil and gas. I've worked in the Middle East, currently in Canada. I've held senior leadership positions in Fortune 500 and FTSE 100 companies, looked after swathes of land, Europe, Middle East, Africa. Like I mentioned, I'm currently in the beautiful country of Canada, working for the mining giant Rio Tinto. So I look after Rio Tinto's operations in British Columbia. This is on the west side of Canada, and that includes an aluminum smelter, a hydroelectric dam that's serviced, the smelter is serviced by rail, it's serviced by a port, by a wharf. I've got about 15 plus health, safety, and environment professionals who report into me. So that's what I currently do. In 2019, 2020, I chaired the UAE branch, and together with a team of about 11 people, we increased the membership by 11%. Just to give you kind of an idea of what that means, the year prior to mine, we increased it by 2%. So we really put IIRSM UAE on the map and set the scene globally for the other 60 branches and groups. I'm an HSE advocate and edutainer, and what that basically means in a nutshell is I produce videos. I love to produce videos, and if you're interested, you can check out my social media platforms to kind of see what type of videos I produce, mostly about safety. In fact, some of my videos I learned have been picked up by the International Labour Organization, and I'm told that they've disseminated some of these videos in their trainings. Based on what I've just said, I'm regularly invited to speak at events like this one, to write in magazines, and to judge prestigious events such as the Expo 2020, Better Together Awards, Mead Awards, and so on and so forth. And last but not least, I am a PhD student, my fourth year of a PhD, focusing on safety leadership with Lancaster University. I'll be speaking about a lot of these points during the presentation. Now, what is the inspiration for developing a talk like this? And I'm gonna show you some quotes now, and I'm sure some of you may be able to pick up to basically understand where I'm coming from. So let me read the first one. So, hi sir, hope you are doing well. Do you have any vacancy for HSE officer? The second one, dear sir, I'm amazed with your network and I was hoping you had any vacancy for the position of HSE officer, or know of someone or a company that is currently hiring for this role in the UAE which you can refer me to. I'm open to new opportunities and any help would be much appreciated. Thanks and best wishes. And last, dear sir, if you don't mind, I'd like to ask your help. If there's any job vacancy for experienced QHSE engineer in your company. Now, I'm sure some of you can relate to this. These are direct quotes. These are direct messages from my LinkedIn messaging service. I get something like this at least once a day. And honestly, I'm the type of person that will respond to every single message. I do not ignore any message. You can guarantee that if you message me, I will respond. But the hopes of getting a job in this fashion, by sending out random emails to people asking for a job, it does not really work. Most people will not answer you, because they're bombarded with messages like this all the time. And so what I decided to do is, look, I got to add my 2 cents here. I got to maybe create a presentation of some sort to maybe give some insight, some tips to people so that they can understand. You could possibly get a job like this, maybe once in a million, attempts, but generally people will not get jobs like this. So I decided to put a presentation together to inspire people from my own experience, from my own journey in my career. So that's kind of the inspiration for why I put this talk together. So let's jump to lesson number 1. Be your best. And to kick this lesson off, I'm going to tell you about the first point, which is love what you do. Now, I graduated from the American International School in Abu Dhabi, and I wanted to do something, obviously, at university, something that could add value. Now, being from a culture, and I think in India it's kind of the same thing, but we are brought up in a culture where it's one of three things. You either be an engineer, you either be a doctor, or you be a lawyer. Those are the three respected functions in society. And to be fair, my parents did not force me to do anything. I could choose whatever I wanted to do, but I was brought up in that culture, right? Everybody around me, it's either medicine, it's either law, or it's either engineering. And I decided to do engineering. I was fascinated by mechanics and how things move. So I decided to do a bachelor in mechanical engineering. I got accepted to a couple of universities in Canada, and I decided to take up mechanical engineering at McGill University. So I went to Canada. I started my bachelor's. It's a 4.5, 5-year program. And every summer I would go back to the UAE, to Abu Dhabi, to visit my parents. And while visiting my parents, my dad had a business, and I would frequent his business on, I would go to work basically with him, to learn, to see things, many people do that, whether it's not with a family business, with other, they get a job of some sort to add value, right, to get some experience. So I started doing that. And every summer I would go to my dad's company, and there was a particular office in that company that had two individuals in it. One was a younger individual. He was around in his late 20s, early 30s. And the other individual was, between 50 and 60 years old. And both these individuals kind of did the same job. And every summer I would go. Now, let me describe these two individuals. The first individual was very enthusiastic, right? He was very passionate, very into his job. The second individual was, I didn't see the same energy. He wasn't really into it. It looked like he didn't want to be there. And every year I would return to my dad's office, and I watched this individual, this younger individual, start growing in the company. The other individual stayed the same. Over the 5 years that I visited my dad's office, one individual stayed in the same position. The other started to grow and got to management position. And this individual that was enthusiastic, that was passionate, it looked like he loved what he was doing, right? Even after hours, even after 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 6 p.m., he would go home and he would, try to find new ways of doing things, try to improve the business. And I learned very early on that if you want to be your best, you need to love what you do. If you do not love what you do, you will not find the discretionary energy to do things after you get back from work. Whether, in my case, I took on a PhD. Why? Because I love what I do, right? I can add value to the field. I have the energy. I will find the energy within me when I come back from work to go back and to put those hours into study. I took on a chairmanship with a safety organization. Why? Because I love what I do. I want to add value, right? If you don't love what you do, you won't be able to do those things, right? You won't be able to add value because you get home and you're like, oh my God, I can't even believe I'm done with the day, right? I want to sit on the TV and just relax and get everything off my mind. So the first lesson is to love what you do. Now, I'm not telling you to quit your job today, but what I am telling you is I encourage you to look deep within yourself and to see maybe, is this really for me? And if it's not, maybe start finding what is for you and slowly transition out, maybe do something on the side. But it's really important to love what you do. Whether you're in health and safety, whether you're in something else, love what you do. So in my 5th year of engineering, I kind of finished my bachelor's in mechanical engineering. I felt that it's a fascinating field, don't get me wrong. I love engineering, but can I see myself doing this for the rest of my life? Can I add value? Can I go back home after 6 o'clock and add value? I don't see myself doing that. So what I decided to do is to do a master's in something else. I asked my dad, I asked his friends, and they introduced me to a field called health and safety. And I read about this field and I was like, wow, this is a fascinating field. I could spend the rest of my life putting systems in place, delivering training, doing things that could save people's lives. And that really rocked my boat. So after graduating from mechanical engineering, I applied for a master's in environmental engineering with a focus on occupational health and safety. And that's what I did. I did that and I graduated, and that's what I've done ever since. I've done that ever since I've graduated. Now, the second point is be amazing at what you do. So not only love what you do, but be amazing at what you do. When I graduated from my degrees in engineering, when I graduated from my master's, I went back to Abu Dhabi where my parents were, And I started working with a construction company. It was called Target Engineering. It's one of the largest construction companies in the Middle East. And I started working on ISO 14001 because I've got a master's in environmental engineering. It's kind of my focus. But I was also sent to numerous projects to kind of assist. It was kind of a fast-track development project to kind of learn health and safety very quickly. And about a year and a half into the job, we had a client called ECL, who was building the hot bath removal facility and the anode rotting shop at Emirates Global Aluminum. So this was a smelter in Abu Dhabi, and this company ECL was building those two shops. It was a $120 million turnkey project, and ECL was having problems with their safety. They had an Australian health and safety manager, they had a French supervisory team, and these guys were at it. They could not get along. So Target, the company I work for, was a contractor of ECL. And ECL reached out to Target and they said, do you have any health and safety professional that can speak French? And that was me. So they nominated my name. With a year and a half of experience, I went into that project. And the health and safety manager, he was my mentor. But he wasn't my mentor for long. He was there for about 1 or 2 months. And then unfortunately, he had a stroke, right? And he had to be flown out to Australia. And I was left there. And the French supervisory team, they told management, look, you don't hire anybody else. You put this guy as the health and safety manager. So with 1.5 years of experience, right, I was promoted to health and safety manager for this $120 million turnkey project. It was a huge learning curve for me, but I did amazing at what I did, right? I really tried my best. And that's kind of the philosophy I've had ever since I've graduated. Do your best at anything that you're doing. And so very quickly, I caught the eye of Rio Tinto, which was the company that owned ECL. And Rio Tinto kind of, after this project was finished, they reached out to me and said, would you like to join us and look after the Middle East, our Middle East operations? Now, this company, Rio Tinto, is the company I'm working for right now. So it kind of shows you that, if you give it your best, you will shine. People will notice. And even down the line, they may come back to you and say, look, would you be interested to join us? But you hear this word, I've heard it many times in my career, look, I'm not paid enough. I'm not paid enough to do what I'm doing. If they pay me more, I will give more effort. But right now, I'm not going to give more effort. This is what I'm giving them, and that's it. That is not the attitude to have. You sign the contract, be the best at what you're doing, give it your best, you will shine, you will be noticed. Now, I invite you to read a book on this very concept by an author called Robin Sharma. It's called The Leader Who Had No Title. And it kind of goes into detail about this concept. It's a fable. It's not a book, it's kind of a story, but it teaches this very important lesson. It's a really good book, and I recommend you to read it. But if you are amazing at what you do, you will be noticed. And even through my career, when I notice somebody being his best, I notice. And every time I move somewhere, I want to take that person with me because I know that this person's going to give his best. So the second point of this lesson number 1 is be amazing at what you do. Don't care about the money. The money will come. If you're amazing at what you do, you will shine. People will notice, and they will reach out to you, and they want to have you on their team. The third point in lesson number 1 is be with integrity. And being with integrity basically means don't lie, don't cheat, be with integrity. Have integrity, right? And this will serve you throughout your career. I can even look at my career. Very early on in my career, I had a friend, a general manager, who was looking for a health and safety professional. And I have a big network, so I recommended a certain individual to the general manager, and he had the interview. And I didn't know him very well, but I knew of him. I didn't know what his work ethic was. I was still very early on in my career, but he got hired for the job. And a couple of months into the job, the GM reached out to me and he said, "Who did you recommend to us, man? This guy's work ethic is not very good." And many years later, the same individual, he lost his job in another company. He moved on, but he lost his job, and he reached out to me and he said, "Look, did you have anything you can recommend?" And I did have something I could recommend, but guess what? I didn't recommend him. You know why? Because he was not being with integrity. he was not being, the amazing as best as he could be. Whether he was talking on the phone and doing personal things throughout his day, that's something, but I didn't recommend it. So it's really important. It will serve you in your career if you function with integrity. This will even serve you in leadership. The studies, the academia tell you integrity is a big part of leadership. If people don't trust you, if your employees don't trust you, you're not going to be able to lead, right? So integrity is a big part of leadership, huge part of leadership. So be with integrity, be honest, don't cheat, don't know Alibaba stuff. I don't know if you have that in India, this term Alibaba, but in the Middle East, Alibaba means, zigzagging, taking shortcuts that you're not supposed to take, especially with a field like health and safety. We are health and safety professionals. Integrity is integral to our career. So the third point in this lesson is be with integrity. Now, lesson number 2 is keep developing. And so, Rio Tinto reached out to me. They offered me a job, but guess what? I didn't accept it because what we had discussed in the interview, the contract didn't reflect that. They didn't offer me the same thing. So I refused, but guess what? They came back to me a month later and said, look, sorry, we had a little misunderstanding. Here's the new contract. We really love you to work with us. And I later learned that, the management within Rio Tinto pushed ECL to say, look, hire him. He's a good guy. We've seen what he's made of. So back to lesson number 1, be your best. But anyways, I joined ECL. I started to look after the Middle East operations for this company. And, after 4 or 5 years, I noticed that I wasn't being approached, right? I wanted to grow. I was thirsty for growth. I wanted to grow in the company, and there wasn't any growth opportunities. If I wanted to grow, I would have to, jump to another, to relocate, basically jump to another country. And I wasn't really interested in that. And I noticed that I wasn't being approached by recruiters. I worked for a multinational company. I had amazing experience, but recruiters weren't approaching me. And I was really curious as to why. Look, I've got a master's degree as well. And so I met a friend, an older friend of mine in health and safety at the supermarket once. And we were chit-chatting, and he's like, what's going on in your career? You're still at ECL, you've been 5 years there. Are you happy? I'm like, look, I'd love to move. I'd love to grow, but I'm not being approached. I don't understand. I don't understand why I'm not being approached by recruiters. And he said, look, send me your CV and I'll have a look at it. And so I sent him my CV. And the next day he calls me. He's like, look, Islam, you've got amazing experience. You've got a master's, fine, but that's not what the market is asking for. You haven't developed ever since you started, you started work. You've been developing in your work, but in terms of, memberships and qualifications and trainings, you haven't done anything. And the market is asking for, the NEBOSH, the market is asking for the IIRSM, certificates and IOSH and this and the CSP and this, and you haven't done any of that. And it's no wonder that people are not reaching out, because the recruiters, they look for these things, and if they see in your CV that you don't have them, well, guess what? They're just going to move on to the next person. A recruiter spends about 5 seconds looking through your CV, and he's looking for key terms. If he doesn't find those key terms, he moves on. And so he said, maybe you should look at developing. And so, the next day I woke up and I'm like, boom, I registered for IIRSM. I registered with IOSH, started, as a grad member because I had a master's, started working towards my CRSP, my Canadian Registered Safety Professional, registered with the international diploma. I went all at it. I did everything. And within a year, I got a job. Within 1 year, I moved to the next job. But the point is, guys, you cannot stay in your, especially in a field like health and safety. Health and safety is, quickly developing. You need to develop. You need to keep developing. So lesson number 2 is to keep developing. Now, the first point on there is to have a growth mindset. To develop, you need to have a growth mindset. And let me tell you a bit about what a growth mindset is. There's 2 types of mindsets. There's a fixed mindset and there's a growth mindset. Now, a growth mindset is basically, look, I'm not very good at English. I need to develop. I would love to do the international diploma, the NEBOSH, for example. You know what? Even though I'm not good at English, I'm going to try. And I may fail the first time. I may fail the second time, but I'm going to keep on trying until I get that diploma. A fixed mindset, on the other hand, is, I'm not really good at English. I don't think I'm going to pass. I'm going to waste money. I'm not even going to try. If you want to develop, you need to have a growth mindset. You need to have a growth mindset, because a growth mindset basically says, all right, I can do it. And if you have a fixed mindset, you've already decided in your head, I can't do it. So you're not even going to try. But if you have a growth mindset, you've decided that I'm going to do it, I'm going to succeed, you're going to give the energy to succeed. So it's really important to have a growth mindset. The last time I gave this presentation, I had a couple of people reach out to me and said, look, thank you very much. We're going to take on the NEMOS diploma because, we were hesitating. We kind of had a fixed mindset. There's reasons why we didn't, but we're going to take it on. And I'm really happy that people are trying to change, from that presentation that I delivered, because it's important to have a growth mindset. If we look at the likes of Michael Jordan, Michael Jordan, very influential people in the world like Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan, he did not make his varsity basketball team. Can you imagine? The best basketball player in the world, he did not make his varsity basketball team. But guess what? He didn't have a fixed mindset. He didn't sit there and say, that's okay. Maybe I'll look at something else. Maybe I'll look into football or something else. He said, I'm going to do it. I didn't make it this time, but guess what? I'm going to make it next time. And he did. And guess what? He's the best basketball player in the world. Mrs. Rudolph, Wilma Rudolph, in the 1960s, she was born prematurely. She had problems with her left leg, but she was the fastest woman in the 1960s. She was a runner for the United States. But look at that, she couldn't even walk properly as a child, but she had a growth mindset. She put her mind to something and she worked hard to achieve it. Growth mindset. Jack Ma, I'm sure you guys have heard of Jack Ma. How many interviews did he do? How many interviews did he fail? But he kept on going. He kept on going, and now he owns Alibaba, right? So growth mindset is really, really important. And any influential person in the world, if you look at their history, I'll give you another example. Muhammad Ali. Do you know that Muhammad Ali, when he first came out, they take measurements, right? They take measurements for body size, and they have certain measurements that they look at to determine whether this guy has a future in boxing or not. And Muhammad Ali failed those measurements. They kind of said, look, he doesn't meet the muscular kind of breadth that a boxing person should have. He doesn't meet those, so he's not going to be successful. But guess what? He had a growth mindset, and he was going all the way. He was going to succeed, and he's recognized as the biggest, one of the biggest, not only boxers of the 20th century, but sports figures in the 20th century. So I invite you guys, if you have a fixed mindset, if you have a mindset where I'm not gonna, it looks like I'm gonna fail, I'm not gonna try. If you have that type of mindset, change it. You need to have a growth mindset. To develop, you need to have a growth mindset. Number two, have a development plan. It really, I'm really in wonders sometimes, when I talk to safety professionals and they don't have a development plan. They don't know what they're after. They don't know what they're, in the next 2 years, this is what I'm looking at. The next 3 years, 5 years, there's no plan. I'm just aimlessly roaming the earth with no development plan. It's really important, guys, to have a vision, to have, some place where you're aiming at, because then your efforts will aim in one direction. If you don't have that, you're just roaming around. There's nothing that you're adding. You need to have a plan. This is what I'm doing in 1 year. I have a 1-year plan. I've got a 3-year plan. I've got a 5-year. This is where I'm going. This is what I need to do to get there in 1 year, in 3 years, in 5 years. It's really important to have a development. If you don't have a development plan, I invite you today, sit with yourself for a couple of hours and say to yourself, okay, where do I want to go in the next couple of years? Do I want to start a business? What do I need to do to start a business in 5 years? What experience do I need to have? Where do I need to work so I get that experience and then jump to starting my business? What qualifications do I need to get? You need to have a development plan. Where do you want to go? And based on where you want to go, that's what, you start putting things in place to get to that objective. So the second point under lesson number 2 is have a development plan. And the third point is, it takes money to make money. You need to invest money in order to grow, right? If you want to grow, you need to invest in the IIRSM certifications and the NEBOSH and this and that. So don't be shy to invest money. You're investing in yourself. What you invest today, you will find later on. So do not be shy of investing money in yourself. So that was lesson number 2. Lesson number 3 is find a mentor. So I left Rio Tinto after 5 years. I got a job with an oil and gas company. And again, I was there for about 4 years. And again, the same story. I started getting frustrated. I was being approached, right? Don't get me wrong. I was being approached by a lot of recruiters, but, it wasn't, maybe the salary wasn't good. The company, and I really wanted to jump really high, right? So I wanted to get to those big companies. And so what I decided to do after about 3 or 4 years at Fortive, so I jumped to a company called Fortive. It's a Fortune 500. It's a spin-off from another Fortune 500 called Danaher. They're known for the Danaher business system. But anyways, 4 years into the job, and I was starting to get frustrated. I wanted to grow again. I wanted to grow up the corporate ladder. So what I decided to do was, I need to find somebody that kind of has a similar profile as myself, and I need to talk to that person. I need to ask them, look at my profile. What do I need to do to grow? And so what I decided to do, I went on LinkedIn and I started going through, the big companies and looking at the profiles, the health and safety managers, the directors. What do they have that I don't? Maybe I could talk to somebody. So I went through LinkedIn, spent about a couple of hours, and I found an individual by the name of Rob Cooling. Some of you may have heard of him. He is the Vice President of Health and Safety for Expo 2020. And I'll tell you what, I read through his profile. He's a PhD. He had a PhD. He was working for Expo 2020. I was like, I need to talk to this guy. Anyways, I said, should I reach out to him? Should I send him an email? Anyways, it slept for a while. And I was invited to an event. I was invited to an event to participate in an event by an author called Clive Lloyd. He's a behavioral psychologist. And he wrote a book called, recently he wrote a book on the next generation safety leader. But I was invited to an event to kind of meet him and to watch him present. And so I went there, and I was going through the, signing my name on the attendance list. And I looked through the list, just reading who was present, because it was kind of an event for selected, it was like 50 people that were invited. And I looked at the list, and lo and behold, guess who I find on the list? I found Rob Cooling. I was like, wow, this is my opportunity now to meet this individual. So I looked at his LinkedIn profile, I looked it up, looked at what he looks like. I looked across the room, I spotted the guy, and about halfway through the event, he got up to leave because, he's a busy guy at Expo 2020, and I saw him talking to the presenter. And so I said, this is my chance. So I ran out, I went to the exit of the building, and I stood there. And my plan was, when I see him coming, I'm going to walk towards him and bump into him. And that's what I did. So I stood there at the entrance of the hotel. I saw him coming towards, the exit, and I started walking. And I stopped in front of him and I said, Rob Cooling? He's like, yes. I'm like, oh man, I'm very nice to meet you. I've heard a lot about you. Do you mind? Look, I'm looking for a mentor. Do you mind if I met with you, or if I called you, or if I emailed you? Do you mind if I email you and ask you a few questions? He's like, not at all. Here, look, here's my card. Give me a call and come over to Expo 2020, and we can sit down for an hour and we can have a chat. I'm like, okay, thanks. So that's what I did. I called the guy, got dressed up, went to Expo 2020, sat with him, and honestly, he gave me probably the best advice, that's really turned my career around. He gave me a lot of advice, but the one particular advice that he gave me is, look, if you want to grow, one thing that I found as Rob Cooling, one thing that he found is to get involved with membership organizations like IIRSM, like the BCSP, because that's where you meet people, and that's what I did. I didn't just join IIRSM. I ran for the chair. I'd never been involved with IIRSM. I've never been involved with a membership body, but that's what I did. I ran for chair and I won. And I applied lesson number one: be amazing at what you do. I sacrificed a lot of family time to grow the membership. We, like I said, we grew the membership by 11%. By introducing a lot of things, and all those are, on my YouTube channel. You can check out what we did, but we really made a difference. We put IIRSM on the map, and I'm not advising everybody to run for chair. That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is get involved with a membership organization. Find yourself a mentor, right? Mentors have been there, have done that, They've put in the years, they've learned the lessons. Do not reinvent the wheel. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. There's people who've done it before. You can save yourself some time. Talk to somebody. Find people who you aspire to be like. Find them. Try to approach them. Instead of sending them a message like, do you have a job for me? I'm looking for a job, these LinkedIn emails. Instead of doing that, why don't you reach out and say, look, I've seen your profile, and I would really appreciate if you can be my mentor. You will have a lot more success doing that, getting a mentor and growing like that, than sending a message and saying, can you find me a job, right? So don't reinvent the wheel. Find yourself a mentor, person who's been there, who's done that. And you never know, maybe down the line, this guy will say, look, I've got a job, I've got an opening. Are you interested? And once you grow, find people to mentee, right? Find people to mentor, find mentees, people who want to grow, help them. Somebody helped you, now pay it back, help somebody else grow. So that's lesson number 3, find a mentor. Don't reinvent the wheel. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. Find somebody who's gone through the journey, talk to them, get some advice from them on how to grow in your career. So that's lesson number 3. And last but not least, lesson number 4, network, network, network. It's not what you know, it's who you know. When I left the UAE, I came to Canada, and a couple of weeks later, I get a call from a friend at a very large consulting engineering company, an American Fortune 500, and he's like, where are you? I've tried giving you a call. I tried calling you on your UAE number, it's closed, so he sent me an email. Sorry, he didn't call me, but he sent me an email, and then we spoke, and he's like, where are you? Are you interested to join? Now, this is somebody I met through IIRSM, right? I met through branch events, just like this one. And he said, would you like to join? And he saw my work. He didn't know much about me, but he saw that I existed. He saw the work that I was doing. He saw that I was applying lesson number 1, being amazing at what you do, right? And he said, would you like to join Jacobs? I wanted to stay in Canada at the time, but the point is networking. Going to branch events, you start meeting people, you start growing your network. From networking events, I've given people jobs at networking events just for being there, because they're there. I know they exist. I know they're looking for a job. That's where the transactions happen sometimes, right? It's not what you know, it's who you know. From networking, I've speaking at events. Very early on in my career, I think I had 5 or 6 years of experience, and but I had a good network. And I was talking to a friend, and he was going to deliver a talk in Jordan. Right? Imagine Jordan. And he said to me, I know what you're made of. We've worked together before. You should maybe consider talking at events. And I said, I'd love to, but how do I get into that? He said, you know what? I'm going to Jordan next week. I'm going to deliver an event. I'll get you in to deliver a talk. I'm like, okay. And that's how my speaking engagements began. I've delivered many, many, many talks ever since, but it was networking. It's who you know. That person, just like that. You could apply to talk at events. You'll probably get rejected, but that person got me in a second. He just picked up the phone, called the organizer, and said, look, I've got a really amazing speaker. I would like him to talk at the event. And that was it, right? It's not what you know, it's who you know. So network, network, network. So that's kind of the 4 lessons from my career. I really hope it's added value, especially if you've got some younger folks on the session today. I hope it's added some value, so you don't have to reinvent the wheel. Like I said, if I could give advice to my younger self, I would give my younger self this presentation, because it would have saved me a lot of time. So thank you very much for listening. Again, I really appreciate you guys having me over. It's an honor to be delivering to an audience in India. And I'm open to questions, comments, queries, concerns, major surprises even. Thank you, Mohit.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks a lot. Donna, can we check? Yeah, for the questions, yes.
Yeah, thank you. We've got one question from Tanya. So it's just to the Tanya. Yes, we can see the questions. If you just type your question in, then I'll pass it on to Islam and ask him to mention it. But one of the things that I wanted to say is you mentioned mentoring. IIRSM have a really good mentoring platform. We've actually got a digital mentoring platform. So you can actually link, you can put in your preferences of what sector you'd like to find a mentor in, and you can actually link with mentors from all across the world. So you can have that digital mentoring relationship, and it's a formal relationship. You can agree how many times you want to meet, which is a really good tool, I think, and something, as you said, Islam, that really will help and benefit people in their careers and their career progression.
Absolutely, Donna. Let me just say, if I can just jump in, guys, this is the perfect opportunity. You know, they've, you know, in the last session I presented something very similar to this presentation, but people were asking, how do I get a mentor? Where do I get a mentor? Do I go to LinkedIn? Do I go? You know, there's several ways, but IIRSM has already provided, you know, the mechanics of how to get it. They put a strategic process in place for you to find a mentor and to grow. So, you know, I really encourage you to tap into that program. It's really important to find a mentor, guys. It's extremely important. Find somebody who's done it. Do not reinvent the wheel.
Brilliant, thank you. So we've got some compliments to say. Thank you for a great session. So thank you for that. We've got one question. Oh, Tanya's typed hers, but we've got one question regarding how do they improve their English communication?
Yeah, look, you know, I remember from doing NIBOSH, English was kind of a big thing to do NIBOSH. But like I said, guys, where there's a will, there's a way. You know, if English is not your primary language, register for courses. You know, watch you know, Netflix in English to try and pick up. That's a very fast way to start picking up English. But what I find the best way, let me tell you a little story about myself. Very early on in my life, we moved from Ontario, which is an English-speaking province in Canada, to Quebec, a French-speaking province. And my dad, he put me obviously in a French school because we're in a French province. And I was in grade 3 at the time. And the principal of the school said to my dad, look, the guy doesn't speak a word of French. He does not know one word of French. We can't put him in grade 3. He'll suffer. He can't do it. We're going to bring him back a grade. We're going to put him in grade 2. And my dad was really upset. My dad was like, no, you're going to make this guy suffer. He's going to lose a year. And the principal said to my dad, look, how much would you pay to learn another language at this point in your career? And he convinced my dad. And so they brought me down a grade. I went down from grade 3 to grade 2. And I was immersed in the program. I was with people who only spoke French, with friends. And when you're put in that situation, when you're immersed, you're forced to learn it. You have no other choice. You're going to force yourself to learn it. And so that's what I did. I picked up the language, and I speak 3 languages right now. But French has served me in every single part of my career. Every single job I've gotten, French played a critical role in that part. So what I encourage you to do is, you know, to watch the Netflix, to register maybe for a course or 2, but get yourself immersed. Join maybe groups, pick up friends that only will speak to you in English, and you're going to be forced to learn English very quickly. So that would be my advice to you: immerse yourself in the language.
Brilliant, thank you. We've got another question is, how do we convince top management to follow the HSE practices?
Yeah, look, if you have the answer to that, then you know, you'll be a very rich person. But look, HSE is it's a very political role, right? You're in a company with, you know, maybe management does not see eye to eye. What I found to be the best mechanism for you know, driving management in that direction is this right here: the bling bling, the money, right? You need to show them somehow. You need to speak their language, and it's very important for HSE professionals to be familiar with, you know, finance and budget and stuff like that. But you need to speak their language. They're not going to understand. Many won't understand your HSE language. You need to learn a new language. You need to learn the language of this, the money. You need to show them that by implementing health and safety, that will actually serve them in the long run. That will save them money. And if, you know, if ever you guys are interested, I can come back and present, you know, something that I've been delivering at sessions, at seminars and at events all over the world about the why behind safety. But you need to find a way to talk their language. You need to find how to speak that language.
Brilliant, thank you. So we've got another question. Which safety certifications or membership could give enhancement in future career opportunities?
Yeah, look, there's a wide array of certifications. All of them are good. All of them are great. I don't know what the Indian market looks like. I'm not familiar with the Indian market. But look, in the Middle East, when I was in the Middle East, it was IIRSM, it was the IOSH. Now that there's newly the CRSP, the CSP. Not newly, but now they're really gaining traction. So there's a lot of qualifications out there. And speak to your mentor. In India, what is it that recruiters are looking for? What will give you value for your buck, basically? So speak to mentors in India, people who've gotten there, who understand, etc. Speak to them, and they'll be able to guide you and give you some guidance on which certifications make most sense in that location.
Lovely. Are there any specific kind of software skills that you feel that people should be proficient in that will help them with their career progression?
Look, in my philosophy, the more you can learn, the better. You'll find a way to use all of these. Even if you don't use it directly, you've just gained a skill. Maybe you can, if you've developed an app, for example. I've got a friend who is now developing an app for his company. Hazard identification app and action planning app. So every skill you gain, you will find use for it somewhere. In terms of a specific software program, I don't have any particular in mind. But I'll give you the bird's eye picture. Whatever you learn, you will find use for it. Whether maybe not directly, but indirectly. You've just gained a skill. You'll be able to find ways to innovate in the field. Like I said, you will have the discretionary. If you have the discretionary energy, you can tap into these tools to make to add value to the field. For example, I'm very into videography. I love videography. I've got the blue screen and the cameras and the mics and all that, and I love producing content. I'm now producing content for my company. Every company I've worked for now, they love the videos that I produce. Right? But I had a skill that I learned very early on. It wasn't for safety. It was not for safety. I didn't learn video editing for safety. It was for private, just making family videos and things like that. But when I started working, I said, hey, maybe I can use that skill to innovate in the field. And I started making videos for the companies that I work for. And it just blew up, right? Instead of getting like, imagine a toolbox talk, instead of sending out an email to 1,000 employees saying, guys, we're having a lot of pedestrian vehicle interactions, here are the steps to follow. Instead of doing that, imagine sending out a video, a very innovative video, right? That's engaging. Wow, people are going to be like, this is what we want. I'm ready to listen now. I don't want to read an email. I've got thousands of emails in my inbox. So whatever you learn, you will find some way to use that in your career. So nothing in particular, but I say just keep learning, keep picking up stuff.
Yeah. Okay. So another question, and I think you touched on this throughout your presentation. It's about people being promoted or getting jobs over others who might have the same sort of skill set or have the same sort of qualifications. Do you think that that's to do with an organizational structure? But I think you were talking about in your presentation how it could just be that person's outlook on work and outlook on kind of work practices.
Yeah. Look, guys, I really believe in. I'll kind of advertise that book, The Leader Who Had No Title, because it really emphasizes that point. But the point that I want to make is your work ethic will really make a difference. You can have all the certifications in the world. You can have everything you want. But if your work ethic is not on par with, with what companies want to see success, they want to see people who are able to drive change, right? They will want to see people that can reduce the injury rates, people who are energetic, who are enthusiastic. If you're just there to tick the box, right? I go there, I do the minimum just to tick the box, just to get my salary, and that's it. You're not going to be recognized. But if you're there giving more, if you're doing things out of the ordinary, if you're trying your best to shine, you will shine. You will shine. People will notice that. Clients will notice that. Others will notice that. And when they have an opportunity, guess who's going to come to their mind? You're going to come to their mind because you shined above everybody else. So certification is important, experience is important. But what I found is if you want, to climb, you've got to give your best. You got to go overboard, because that's when people will shine and they'll take notice of you.
Yeah. So Tanya has a question. So in India, there isn't any government guidelines around film production safety. So building a culture with production is a challenge. So how can Tanya as an individual actually influence and bring change to the film production safety to minimize risks on film sets?
That's a great question, and I don't think there's a simple answer to that. One of the things I tried to do when I was back in the Middle East, I didn't get very far with it because then I jumped to another job. But one of the things I did in the UK, one of the organizations I worked for was a retail fueling company. It was called Gilbarco. And one of the things when I joined the company, one of the things we did was it was mandatory for you to go take a training called the UK PIA, the Petroleum Industry Association. It's a 2-day training that teaches you about the risks with retail fueling, with petrol stations, installations, etc. And it was valid for 3 years. And after 3 years, we'd have to send everybody back to to the UK to get that training. Now, apart from the costs, the idea that came to my head is why are we doing that? So I came up with a 2-part plan. The first plan is try and deliver the training in the UAE, right, where I was working. So instead of sending people there, I'll deliver it here to minimize the costs of traveling, etc. And that's what I did. I applied to become a tutor. We set up a training center in Dubai, and that's what happened. But the second thing I did, which is relevant to what your question is, why are we, and no disrespect to the UK or anything else, but why are we relying on the UK standards? Why don't we develop an internal standard to the Middle East? And that's what I started doing. I started approaching large oil and gas companies in my position, and I put a business plan together, and I started to approach them and say, look, why don't we collectively as a group start building a standard, put an organization together where we can drive a standard in the Middle East. And anybody working on any of your forecourts, whether the local companies in the Middle East, anybody working there has to be trained in, let's say, the Middle East PIA, for example. Why do we need to go to the UK or to the US or to anywhere else to develop, to get trained? Why don't we develop an internal, in-house kind of certification? And I started to work on that project. I approached ADNOC, I approached ENOC, and started approaching. But then I moved on to another job, so I didn't get far. But what I would advise you to do, Tanya, is maybe think about this very deeply. Touch base with people who have started, maybe in India, people who've started organizations, that are maybe industry-specific organizations, nonprofit organizations that try to drive improvements. And think about that. You need to network. Obviously, you need a lot of help with this. This is not something you can do on your own. You need a huge network, a lot of help with doing something like this. But start thinking about maybe that approach to trying to drive change. But I commend you for wanting to drive change in that industry. It's very commendable. Thanks for that.
Brilliant, thank you, Sam. So the last question, I think it touches on one of the questions that were asked earlier. So how can we encourage management to invest in safety? So it's more of an investment question. You know, how do we get them to spend their cash, as it were?
Yeah, again, the $1 million question, but I'll reiterate what I said, guys. Many times management, not to say that they are unethical or inhuman, or not to suggest that, but many times they don't understand, what for them it's just a box ticking exercise. The government requires us to have a health and safety professional, or the client requires us to have a health and safety professional. That's what we're going to do. Now your job, your challenge is, all right, I'm the health and safety professional for this company, and we can do more. We have to do more. But how do I speak the language of management so I can convince them that if they put $1 here, in health and safety, they may save up to $4, or they may even make money, right? How do we convince? So just to go back, one of the things that I did, with Gilbarco is, because now I was a trainer in the Middle East, one of the plans was to start charging, some of our contractors to take this training on, and that was one of the reasons why the management was very quick to say, you know what, this is a great idea, because I showed them that we can actually make money on this. I don't know if you're familiar with the company DuPont, but DuPont is a chemical company. So your Kevlar, your Kevlar, sorry, and your Teflon, those were created by a company called DuPont. It's a chemical, very large company in the US. But they started back in the 1800s, and they had an incident. I can talk about that. I won't talk to that in detail, but they had an incident where they killed, because they started off with dynamite. So dynamite was part of killing. Killing people was part of business, because you're dealing with dynamite. But very early on, they started working on safety, right? And while the world, safety was a big thing in the started picking up with the OSHA and that in the 1970s. These guys have been doing it for 200 years. So they had a lot of experience, and they actually they have a department that only sells safety stuff. They make money off of their safety. So you need to be really innovative, guys. You need to, I know it's a challenge. I've been there, I've done that. I know it's a challenge, but you need to find ways of speaking that language. Maybe you can even make money for the company, right? So try to think outside the box. Try to find ways to innovate. Try to show them that, by investing here, you'll make, you can actually save money. But even if you have the skills and you have the know-how and you're passionate, and maybe you can even make money. Who knows, right? So I know it's a challenge. It's a challenge for all health and safety professionals, but that's why we're here. We are here to take on challenges and to advance the cause. So try to think outside the box.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. I'll hand back over to Mohit now, just for the closing remarks. Thank you so much, Islam.
Thank you, Donna.
Yeah, wow, it was really a wonderful session, and I literally enjoyed, and silently I watched and listened to your talk. I hope the other member also, they would have enjoyed the session like I do. And you rightly placed on the points like networking and growth mindset. Basically, growth mindset is which we limit ourselves in some of the certain scenario, but that needs to be keep on trying hard and hard until we achieve our target. So thanks a lot for your time, and definitely I will reach out to you for another sessions in coming months. So thanks a lot, Islam.
Thank you.
Anything you want to speak for you?
No, look, I just want to thank. I just want to thank you and IIRSM, Donna. Thank you very much for having me. Thank you to the audience for listening. I hope you guys found it beneficial. Reach out, don't hesitate to reach out. Find me on LinkedIn. Happy to connect. And yeah, have yourselves a great weekend, and thanks a lot. Until next time.
Yeah.
Thank you
both.
You.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you,
everyone. Thank you.
And thank you everyone for attending.
Okay, Donna. Bye.
Bye. Bye.